I'm Mindy Wyke, and this is Work in Progress. It's a podcast where we will be talking all about human development in tech. In the tech world, WIP stands for Work in Progress. It's often used for pull requests, merge requests, and sometimes even technical documentation that is still in draft mode. It's not quite finished yet. And let's be real, we are not quite finished. Humans are always in draft mode. This podcast is about the real, the messy, the human side of working in tech. I'll be talking with engineers, but also designers, product folks, customer support, coaches, and people from all over the tech world about what they are learning about, struggling with, building, and becoming. But ultimately, we are not here to showcase perfection. We're here to normalize growth, share stories, and remind each other that being a work in progress is exactly where we are supposed to be. So let's commit to curiosity and jump into it. Well, welcome back to the Work in Progress podcast. With me today, I have Joram Mutenge, and you are a data engineer, if I'm not mistaken. Is that
Data
right?
engineering, part data analyst, part data scientist. I do everything. Yeah.
The trifecta.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Would you like to talk to us a little bit about how you came into data? Because I do feel like it's a little bit different for everyone. So would you mind?
Yes, it's a meandering path. And I would like to take you back to my undergrad years. So when I started undergrad, I wanted to study accounting. And I did a bit of some accounting, maybe for a few months. But one of the things that took me out of accounting was the comment that the professor made, which was that if you are in accounting and you want to be creative, then accounting is not for you, because the people who are creative in accounting, they go to jail. And I thought, whoa, that is really bad for me. I don't want to go to jail. So I dropped out of accounting and then did philosophy. Now, philosophy was good because the plan for me was to end up in law school. I wanted to be a lawyer. And I think the TV show Suits had something to do with that. But after finding out what lawyers do, I decided it wasn't for me. So I ended up finishing with a philosophy degree, but I realized upon graduation that no one was going to hire me to philosophize. So I had to have a plan B, and plan B ended up being data. So I did my master's in data at the University of Illinois with a data science track, and now I am a data professional. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually from Illinois. That's cool. Did you do your undergrad there as well?
No, I did my undergrad at Luther College. It's a small college in Northeast Iowa. It's a very beautiful college, though. I enjoyed it there. Yeah.
So how long have you been in the data field? Like, since you're doing all three, like, how does that work?
Yeah, I've been in the data field for 2 years only, although I have had a number of experiences in that 2 years. So it's been quite a ride. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're doing data science, data analyst, and data engineering. So, like, yeah, what does the trifecta look like in a
Yes.
day-to-day?
So a lot of people kind of think these things are related, but they're kind of different in a way. And I would say that probably on an unfavorable part, the one that is low ranked is data analysis. But in my opinion, it is what brings out a lot of the work that data engineers and data scientists do. But data analysis is usually just you are given the data and then you're trying to find some trends or some insights in that data. And then data science is getting those insights and then creating a model out of that so that you don't have to look at the data anymore. You can just use your model to discover those insights kind of automatically. But data engineering on the other end is setting up pipelines for the data. So imagine having a very massive data pipeline. Let's say for a company like Netflix, they have all this data. Now for an individual person to just analyze that data, that'll be quite a lot of work. A data engineer, on the other hand, would get that data and then model it in such a way that it passes through this pipeline that is easier for people to retrieve and also to manipulate that data and get the insights that they need. So data engineering is more closer to software engineering, and then data scientists are just people who know a bit of some coding and they have a vast knowledge of statistics, whereas data analysts are people who I think have some sort of a business sense, and they know what trends or what insights to unearth from the data. Yeah.
That makes sense. So, so obviously data analysis happens at the end where you make sense of the data.
Yes.
But do you find that you have like one happens before the other with data engineering and data science on your end? Do you come up with the models and then create the pipeline, or is it the other way around?
Yeah. So it's been my experience that the data engineering should come first. So the reason why I think a lot of companies kind of were related to this because they had hired a lot of data scientists without having good pipelines for their data. So a data scientist will only thrive when the data pipelines are good or when the data is clean enough to be able to create those models. But if the data is not that good, then the work of the data analyst or of the data scientist just goes unnoticed. So I would argue that data engineering comes first, then maybe a bit of some data science, and then data analysis would come second. Or actually, data analysts would come second, and then data scientists would come third because they understand what trends they should model for, and then they
Mhm.
go ahead and do that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, cool. And you mentioned something while you were talking that I know we want to touch on, which is cleaning up messy data. Because I know from
Yes.
experience that it,
So when I was in graduate school, one of my professors said that 80%, if not higher, of any data work is actually data cleaning. And I remember thinking about that. And then she went ahead and said, a lot of people hate data cleaning. And I was like, whoa, if it is 80% or higher of the work, and I am one of the people who hate that. I'm not going to have a good time here. So maybe I should try to learn how to get in love with this data cleaning stuff. And my God, it was really good. I I like the idea of being presented with a messy data set and then trying to clean it up so that you can discover those trends and insights that you're looking for. And I think for a lot of people that can be tedious, but to me, I don't know, maybe because when I was an undergrad, I worked as a custodian. And one of the joys of being a custodian at college is that you are presented with this floor that is dirty and then you sweep it up. And at the end of the day, you can see the cleanliness of that. It is kind of like the satisfaction that you get from seeing something that was in disorder and then you see all the chaos go away. So that is how I picture data cleaning, where presented with this messy data, I remove the disorder out of it and present you with a harmonious data set that you can work on.
yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that feels really good. So,
Yeah, it does feel good.
and I guess that's how you like by learning to enjoy that, like the
Yes.
streaming of the chaos, you've learned to love it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the learning that people do is accelerated when you're enjoying what you're doing. If you're frustrated with whatever task that you're trying to do, the learning there is kind of, there's a break in the learning. It is jammed in such a way that the progress is not that good. Yeah.
That makes sense. And at least in this context of cleaning up the data, like what are some of the biggest challenges that you have? I know that it can be sort of all over the place, but
Yes.
so yeah,
Uh,
what are your biggest challenges?
Yeah, perhaps the most common challenge that you would face when you're cleaning up your data is the missing of data inputs. Let's say you have a column like, I don't know, education, and you have, PhD, master's degree, undergraduate, and then blanks. So what to do with those blanks is kind of it, it is difficult for a lot of people to maneuver their way around handling those missing values. Sometimes you can just, if it is numbers, I think the common way is to just use the mean or the average as a normal person would call it, but the data scientists call it the mean. So you would use the mean or the median or something like that. But in my opinion, it is better for you to understand what the data set is about before you go on and try to impute those values that you think are missing. So understanding what does this data set actually, what is it about? And one of the important questions that you can ask about any data set is, what does a row represent? Like, what does a line in that data set represent? Once you understand that, then you can figure out how to handle the missing values.
Well,
Yeah.
it sounds like you kind of have a benefit by being this trifecta because you get to
Yeah.
like you have that deeper context before you
Yes.
before you start a pipeline, before you start a model. Does that
Uh-huh.
sound accurate?
Yes. And I would encourage anyone who is kind of trying to get into the data field to understand what area of each of those three factors contributes to your learning of the data. Because just being a data analyst may be good enough for you, but I think you're shielded from what goes on the other end or the other side of the data trifecta, as you put it. So I would argue that it is imperative that you get a bit of some knowledge in all those three areas. Even if you specialize in one, at least you should have a good enough understanding of what goes on in the other two.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because then if you aren't a trifecta person and you're speaking
Yeah.
who like if you're an analyst and you're talking to an engineer or a scientist, maybe it would help you communicate what you need or what you're looking for so
Yes. Yes.
collaborate a little more easily.
Yeah. It is very important to understand how to speak the language of the person you're trying to communicate with. I think
Hmm.
most of the communication that we do in work kind of just goes on, it falls on deaf ears because the language or the terms that we are using are not quite synonymous. So we end up just making noise as opposed to communicating.
Yeah, that sounds accurate.
Yeah.
Um, well, cool. So, you mentioned a little bit about like if someone were interested in learning data.
Yes.
Um, is there anything else that you would recommend? I know we want to touch a little bit on learning and
Yes.
kind of hear them.
So, as you know, in the tech field, learning is kind of a lifelong goal, right? You always are trying to learn something. But for someone who is coming in new to the data field, I would argue that perhaps the most important skill that you can have as a data professional is actually understanding. Uh, it, this is what I call thinking in tables. So,
Hmm.
what does that actually mean? Understanding how tables are related to each other is kind of the pinnacle of understanding what data actually works. So we all know the common joins, like the inner join or the left join, the cross join, and so forth. But I think understanding how those joins transform your data is the most important thing. And once you know that, you'll be able to you'll be able to say that this cannot work because as a data professional, people will come to you with various requests. They would say, hey, can you transform this data in this other way or this other way? But once you understand those joins, you'll be able to say, okay, I understand your request, but it actually cannot be done because there is no type of join or manipulation that can get them to the outcome that they want. So
Yeah.
just understanding that um, thinking in table skill is very important for you to know how far you can get with your data analysis and trying to combine various data sets in whatever ways you might want. Yeah.
And I guess that's the way that you get to be creative in this field, and
Yes,
not go to
yes.
jail for
I say that in the data field, you need to have the attention to detail of an accountant and the imagination of a poet.
There you
Because
go.
if you're just stagnant, you're not going to thrive in this. One of the good examples that I gave is someone who was trying to determine how to know what horse can win the race. So the common approach would be maybe measuring the legs or the weight of the horse and so on and so forth. But some guy went ahead and just tried to measure the poo, the feces of the of the horse. That to me is what I call having the imagination of a poet, because no normal person would ever think about that. The obvious thing is just measuring the legs and so on and so forth. But here's another person who is taking a vastly different approach. So yes, it is important to have that imagination.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned that you've also been learning TypeScript. So how does that fit
Yes.
into all of this?
So someone told me that if you really want to be a triple threat in data analysis, you need to learn three languages. And those
Mhm,
are SQL
mhm,
or SQL, as other people call it, Python, and JavaScript. So the reason why they say that is that for you to do the data manipulation that you need, you would need the Python. But if you want to get data from the database, you would need the SQL.
mhm.
However, if you want to make beautiful interactive visualizations, you would need JavaScript because there is nothing that beats JavaScript at creating interactive visualizations. And I thought, wow, that is pretty good. Then I stumbled on TypeScript. Someone told me it is actually a superset of JavaScript. And I thought, if it is a superset, I might as well just learn the superset and be done with JavaScript. Yeah, so I started a little bit, and I was like, this is way too difficult than I thought. All these types that you have to add in and so forth. I was like, I just want to make visualizations. I don't want to, create software using TypeScript. If I was doing that, maybe I should have persevered. But I thought, okay, I'll just go to vanilla JavaScript for my visualizations. So that's what I did. For now, at least, I abandoned TypeScript.
I mean, I think that that's smart to some degree, like, because if it's becoming a barrier, then it's not helping you.
Yeah, I'm like,
And
I
once you get a
understand.
really solid grasp on that vanilla JavaScript, you can absolutely move to TypeScript. I found that to be
Okay.
easier personally. Like
Ah,
once I had a really good handle on JavaScript, then TypeScript was just, adding extra rules and extra boundaries in a way that was helpful when done right.
yes. Yeah. Maybe I'll have some courage after learning a bit of some JavaScript to actually dive into TypeScript. But for now, I put it aside. One of the people that I listen to is a guy named Cal Newport.
Hmm.
He wrote a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You, which I highly recommend a lot of people to read. But one of the things that he talks about is that you should do fewer things and know why. So I've adopted that to be my motto: do fewer things and know why. So whenever you're jumping from one thing to the other, just know that that is actually a way of wasting time. It might seem like you're being productive, but you're wasting time. So you are better off picking a few things and knowing why you are picking those few things. So for me, TypeScript was like, I just want to do visualizations, and this is getting in the way. I'm just going to go to vanilla JavaScript. Yeah.
That's a really wise insight because I find myself doing the other thing, which is like more, 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 more. I'm doing all
Yeah.
these things. And actually recently I've like been internally trying to scale back and figure out what are the important things that I need to do.
Yes.
What is
Yes.
really going to make a difference?
Yeah.
So it's very wise of you to figure that out.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
are you using any libraries or tools with JavaScript to help with these visualizations? Or
Yes. So I think the common one that a lot of people would go for in JavaScript for visualizations is D3, which is data driven documents.
I've
It
heard that
is,
one.
yes, it is a very powerful library and quite involving if you're just getting into it. But my God, the number of things that you can do with it is just vast. It is so, um, someone said it is built on components. So you have all these components and you can make whatever you want out of those components. So I think D3 is the go-to. But the one that I have fallen in love with is another new one. Well, it's actually not new, even though it's not known. It's called Apache eCharts. It is so good. The visualizations that come out of that library are just out of this world. Yeah.
But what makes it so different in your opinion? Is it just
Uh,
more beautiful, more elegant, or is it more usable?
Yes, and you don't have to do a lot of work to achieve the aesthetics that you would, reach for in D3. That one, and they have all these examples on their website of various visualizations that you can create. Even the ones that you have never thought of are there. So you have all this code. They have the code in TypeScript and JavaScript of all these visualizations that they have put up on their website. And it is very user friendly. And it has what I would call modern aesthetics. Like it looks modern if you look at it. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
That one I would encourage for anyone who is trying to do interactive visualizations in JavaScript. Apache eCharts is your option. If you are good at JavaScript, you can reach for D3. But for most people in data, they're not good at JavaScript. Let's face it. Yeah.
Or at least they're more versed with Python and SQL.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so.
So, out of curiosity, where are you? I'm just envisioning, so you've made this beautiful visualization. Are you putting it inside of websites or are you putting it inside of existing infrastructure?
Yeah. You can put it in a website, or you can if you are trying to create static charts. So for interactive visualizations, your target placement would be the website,
Hmm.
or maybe it doesn't have to be a public website. It can be a company website, like for most of the things that I do. But I think if you want to have print visualizations, like something that you would see in a magazine or a newspaper or maybe in a book, I think you would convert those to SVG,
Mm-hmm.
which is scalable vector graphics. And then that can remain as a static thing that you can print off. Yeah.
And would you create that using JavaScript or Python?
You would create that using JavaScript. So it's just a matter of saving it in SVG. But I think Python has some wonderful libraries as well that you can easily, create visualizations from. Because if you're doing most of the analysis in Python, you don't want to export that data and then read it through JavaScript and create visualizations. But if you're just trying to, especially print visualizations, I don't go for JavaScript. I usually just use Python. JavaScript shines on interactivity, but Python is not so good at that. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So for the libraries that you would go for in Python, if you want to do some visualizations, I think you would go for what is known as matplotlib. I am not a fan of that myself. I like Plotly and another one which I am trying to test out called hvplot. Yeah, it's designed by HoloViews. It's like a collection of these visualization libraries that steal from Plotly and Matplotlib, and then they just combine everything to make it easier for people to use.
Or
Yeah.
at least try to.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I think we actually kind of blew through the core things that you wanted to talk about. So was there
Yeah.
anything extra?
Yes, I can talk about a few other things. So in data analysis, if you are working with Python, the common tools or libraries that you would use if you're trying to manipulate your data or transform it is pandas. So pandas is a library in Python that a lot of people have heard of. I used to be a pandas fanatic, not anymore. I have jumped ship. I am now using a slightly more modern library called Polars. And I like that one for one simple reason, which is that it helps you with the query engine. So what does that mean? Suppose you had a data set, let's say you had a data set that had 3 columns, the name of the person, the gender, and maybe the age. And you want to know the average age of females in your data set. If you're using pandas, you would say something like filter for the female and then do the average there. But if you do that in reverse and say do the average and then filter for the female, pandas is not smart enough to help you with that. So if you have a massive data set, you'll be doing the computation first and then doing the filtering last, which is not what what a database would do. But Polars, on the other hand, it doesn't matter what order you do those things. It is smart enough to know that, hey, the filtering should come first because I want as very little rows. I want as fewer rows as I can to do the computation. So that's what the query engine does in the back end. So that's the reason why I like it. And it is also faster than pandas. So the fast is what gets a lot of people. But for me, it's not really about how fast it is because pandas is pretty fast as well, but just those other things. And also the syntax is easier to follow. In pandas, you have to wrestle with it to manipulate your data, but Polars, it's just a breeze. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And
Yeah.
it sounds like if they are prioritizing that filter before they do the actual,
Yes.
computation, then that would probably speed it up significantly.
Yes, significantly. And sometimes the speed up is like, 20x or 30x compared to pandas. So it's really,
That's
if
a
you
big
had a massive data set, it can, that difference is non-trivial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. And just to clarify too, the pipelines are typically created with Python, right? And then
Yes.
we would use the JavaScript-based libraries for the visualization.
Yes. I think JavaScript would struggle with the massive data sets that Python would pull through. And, people would like to dunk on Python and say, oh, it's a slow language. Why are people using Python to do machine learning? But actually, the dirty secret of Python is that most of the libraries that Python uses are not written in Python. They're written in faster languages like Rust or C++. So you're merely just interfacing with those libraries using Python. But actually, the hard work is done by these C++, Rust, or C libraries. So that
That
is the
makes
secret that Python has.
well, now everyone knows the secret.
Yeah.
I'm
And
with you.
what makes it win, though, is that it is easier to use. So other languages, like, I don't know, I haven't dabbled in a lot of languages, but I am currently learning Rust. And it is a beautiful language, but the learning curve is just so steep. Yeah.
Yeah, Rust has been on my list of potentials to learn next. So
I would encourage it. It's at least for the data people. I think the data people are now embracing Rust. So I would jump on that wagon if I were you. But you're not a data person, though. You are a kind of like a web dev, right?
yeah, I've taken an interesting path. So I originally started as a backend engineer building APIs, and now I'm working. It's kind of I have an interesting mix right now. So I work on the marketing side. So I do a lot of the front end development. Is not
Okay.
I do a little bit of front end development, but I'm mostly working with the integrations. So it's kind of this interesting in between role.
Yeah.
We're doing a little bit of front, a little bit of back. But you're right. I'm not a data engineer.
Okay. Yeah.
But I've heard good things about Rust and Ruby and Golang is also supposed to be really fast.
Yes. Yeah. That one is also fast.
Mm-hmm.
I
Also
like
on.
Rust. Rust is an interesting one because it's a I think the struggle that you go through as you're learning it pays off in the end.
Hmm.
Most of the things that it safeguards you from will actually benefit you in the future. At the start, they might feel like, you're just being troubled. Like, why do I have to listen to the borrow checker, or why do I need to dereference this and that? But once those things are understood by your coding style, then you just skyrocket from there. Yeah.
And why do you think that, like you said, the data engineers or the data side of things is starting to embrace Rust? Why do you feel like that is?
Yes, I think the reason why is the safety that Rust brings. So if your data pipelines out of whack, I think the damage that can do to a large company it's so enormous. So I think understanding that you can use this other language that can prevent all those errors from happening, I think that's the reason why a lot of people are trying to adopt it. And also the Polars library that I talked about is actually written in Rust. So
Hmm.
maybe that's the reason why a lot of people are also trying to start using that.
Are you able to use that same library, Polus, for when working in Rust?
Yes, it is actually available in Rust, in Node.js, believe it or not. Someone made it happen, and also in R. So you can use it in 4 places, as I believe. So Python, Rust, R, and Node.js. Yeah.
Very cool.
I wanted to talk about the value of a curated path of learning, because I think I mentioned that. Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed about my learning style was that I was like a jumping rabbit. You go on this tutorial and then you go on this other one, and this one looks interesting, and so on and so forth. But actually, that is a good way to waste your time. You don't want to do that. And the best thing that I can advise people to do is to follow a curated path of learning. Now, this, quite honestly, involves a bit of some money, because a lot of the things that are on YouTube is just some one-off things. Here's how to do a list comprehension in Python, or here's how to create this beautiful visualization in JavaScript. But that is not curated. You can learn that skill, but how does it propel you to a destination that you want to reach? And I
Right.
would argue that you are better off doing a course where someone sat down, made a plan for that course, and they understand the things that you have to do before you do this other advanced thing. And that is what I call a curated path of learning. Doing that might seem like a lot of work, but actually when you start doing it, it just strips off a lot of time that you would have been wasting on random tutorials.
No,
So
I would completely agree with that.
yeah, the disadvantage, though, as I said, is that you have to pay money. But I think there's this phenomenon that whenever you have skin in the game, you take the game seriously.
Yeah.
So the learning that you do when you put up some money, doesn't have to be a lot of money, by the way. Just anything that you pay, you realize that, hey, I reached for my wallet on this course, so I better well pay attention and finish it. Whereas if it is just some random tutorial on YouTube, you'll be like, I don't feel like it today. I'll just finish it tomorrow. And then tomorrow never comes, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Or like you said, you jump to a different one because you're like,
Yeah,
ah,
you jump to a different one because there's something even more interesting. So,
no, I definitely agree with that. And that's one of the reasons that I ended up doing a boot camp, which,
yes.
I know there are feelings about that out there, but
Yeah.
I was having such a hard time finding answers, especially with just how broad the internet is, and I don't know who to trust when I was, just starting out.
Yes.
I have lots of questions, so it
Yeah.
was really nice to have someone to talk to, even if it was, online or something.
Exactly. That was a smart move. It probably saved you a lot of time than you can realize because people just waste time online trying to learn these one-off things. They're good to impress your friends with. Oh, I can do a list comprehension in Python, but trust me, they don't really move you forward in your profession or whatever you're trying to target. So a
Yeah, they don't
curated
really
path of
solidify
learning.
it.
Yeah, yeah. And if you think about it, professionals too. I remember reading the biography of Bill Clinton, and I remember stumbling on this passage where they said that he had a coach to teach him how to talk, and I thought, man, that guy was a good speaker, but he even hired a coach to. It's from the outside, you'd never think about it. Yeah, you're like, he doesn't need a coach, but he understands that I need someone who knows how these things work so that I can be even better. I think that is the path that you should be, that is the idea that you should be having whenever you take on the path of curated learning, where you're saying there's someone who thought about this course. They put in the time and how these things connect to each other. And all I have to do is follow that path and I'll be fine.
Right.
I,
Well, and
I
you
would
can always
encourage
take
that.
your own little, rabbit
Yes.
holes or
Yeah.
detours
Uh-huh.
whenever you find something that's interesting that you want to learn about. And I think that's
Yes.
the other thing that really solidifies that information is when
Uh-huh.
you follow the
Yeah.
curiosity trail.
Yes. It's like if someone gave you a novel or a book and
Mhm.
then they said just read one paragraph or one sentence from here and then they move that book away from you and then they give you another book and say just read one sentence and then you read again, they pull it. It's like, how am I going to understand the story if you are just giving me chance to learn this one thing and then you pull it away? That is how I see those random tutorials. Like they give you this enticing thing, they pull it away, then it's like, okay.
Like you're going to each library to find the different parts of the
Yes,
book.
like, okay, how do they connect now? I understand
Yeah.
how, a for loop works in JavaScript, but how does it connect to, I know, the
Yeah.
borrow checker in Rust or something? I don't know.
Great way to think about it.
Yes. So I
Wonderful.
highly advocate for that. And, but I understand that people may be hesitant about, putting up cash or stuff like that. But if you really want to save time, I would encourage it.
I mean, I think you have to do a little bit of research too. Before I did my boot camp, I researched like 5 or 6 different ones that I thought would be an option, and I like dwindled it down. But
Yeah.
maybe a couple of months doing that, whereas I spent
Yes.
probably 2 years trying to learn on my own, and I wasn't
Yeah.
going anywhere. And then
Yes.
after, like, it was like a 9 month nights and weekends course, and after that, I felt so much more prepared.
Yeah. And also there are exceptions, there are some people who can just learn on their own and, be as good as someone who did a traditional path. But
Yep.
most of us are not like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, Joram, it's been really lovely to have you.
Yeah.
If people remember nothing else from this conversation, I like to ask my guests, what is one thing you would like them to walk away with?
Yes. So one of the things that I heard this some time back and it just stuck with me, which is that it takes just as much effort to do useless things as it does to do useful things. So whenever you are trying to do something, always ask yourself, is this useful to wherever I'm trying to get at? If it is not, the effort that you're using, you could be spending it on something useful and then get the benefits of that useful thing. So remember, it takes just as much effort to do useless things as it does to do useful things.
I feel like that is kind of full circle because I feel like we talked a little bit about something similar at the beginning. So I like that.
Yes.
Cherry on top.
Yeah.
One, well, thank you so much for coming and being a guest. It's been lovely to have you, as I said, and thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. It's been a treat. I loved it.
That's it for this commit of the Work in Progress podcast. If you liked it, please hit follow, leave a review, or share it with another human who's figuring things out too. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and keep showing up, even if it's still a draft. Until next time, keep iterating.